Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last day and one of the last, actually the last workshop of the inaugural Culturally Competent Conversations for Equity and Belongingness Summit, or the C3EB Summit. You have gotten so much amazing content over the past 3 days, and this is not going to disappoint you. This is not, this is on the same caliber, actually at a higher caliber, because what you're about to see is a Q&A session between two visionary thinkers and just two incredibly evolved thinkers who really just understand the interconnectedness of equity, belongingness, and intentional inclusion, which is what all of this summit is about. I'm going to introduce you a little bit more about them in just a second. You got to get through the housekeeping first. So if you are tuning into this live or watching this later, make sure you are commenting either using our YouTube channel, C3EB Summit, or our Facebook page, C3EB Summit. We will be monitoring the chats even after the live session is done. So we will make sure that Jay and Torrey get your questions and you can get them answered if you are not able to catch this live, or if we run out of time in this one. And now, before I get into the introductions, as usual, a huge thank you to all of the individual donors who have contributed to this project. Every penny that you've donated has been used towards this and future programming. So thank you so much for that. And also a huge thank you to our partners and sponsors who believe in the C3EB dream and are walking the walk with us toward equity, toward belongingness, and toward intentional inclusion. So huge thank you from the bottom of my heart to Essential IT, our web team, who is doing an amazing job managing this on the back end for 3 straight days now. To Defy the Status Quo Marketing with Ruthie Bowles, who's been co-hosting these sessions with me, along with being a keynote speaker. To our platinum sponsor, Zanzibar Enterprises, and you saw Zanzibar's keynote yesterday, and to our Pearl partner, our Pearl corporate partner, the Nielsen Company, and you heard from Santosh last night as well. With that being said, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to these two gentlemen you see on the screen with me. First is my friend, Jay Brown, who is the Chief Sales Officer at John L. Logistics. And this is his bio in his words. I'm just a kid from Flint. My life mission has always been dedicated to the preservation of humanity and creating a lasting impact wherever I am. I believe that everyone deserves reliable and sustainable advocacy, the type of advocacy that encourages people from all walks of life to live out their greatest passion, no matter their position in life. Accomplishing and reaching goals is nothing when compared to creating lasting and sustainable growth that ultimately changes the way that people view their lives. Jay, my friend, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to do this. And thank you for bringing on and introducing me to Torrey Henderson, the co-speaker for this session. Torrey is a senior sales executive and a writer and the CEO and co-founder of the Flint Unity Movement. Corey's hometown is Flint, Michigan as well, which, you know what, we are going to be talking about Flint and the settlement and all of that. I hope you guys are bringing that up. If not, please make sure to. Torrey attended the University of Michigan Flint for marketing and finance, and his mission is providing advocacy-based CSR, or corporate social responsibility solutions, to Fortune 500 companies. Torrey is currently finishing his first book, which I'm very curious about, Torrey, so I need you to talk about that a little bit too. And his hobbies include writing, traveling, and volunteering. Overall, Torrey is an all-around humanitarian and advocate for philanthropy, education, healthcare, and the environment. With all of that being said, guys, the stage is all yours. I cannot wait for this talk. Take it away.
Thank you, AJ. We appreciate it. You got me moving in my seat. So to all of you out there, thank you for tuning in. We're looking to have a good time with this session. My man, Torrey.
Yes,
It's a
sir. Yes, sir.
pleasure. It's a pleasure getting down with you again, man. We're talking about, what does advocacy even mean in this climate, right?
Mhm.
And it's one for the ages, right? It's a once in a century type of climate that we're experiencing right now. So we don't want to belabor the time. So there's really four ways or four different ways we're going to look at advocacy, right? We're going to look at it from environmental safety perspective, from a healthcare perspective, an education perspective, and lastly, we're gonna end it with a perspective within the philanthropic community. So let's start with environmental safety, right? And environment. It's one of those
Sure.
things where these words and these things, people, it's very rare that you find people defining what these things mean, right?
Absolutely.
So if I was to define environment or environmental safety, what I'm saying is it's really the surrounding or conditions in which people, animals, and or agriculture like live and operate, right? It can
Okay.
also be a direct reflection of a community's emotional and mental well-being,
Wow. Okay. All
right?
right.
That's
All
I
right.
look at it. It really is a direct reflection. So we're looking at environmental safety. It could be a direct reflection of a community's emotional and mental well-being. So from an environmental safety perspective, from your viewpoint, what does that look like for both a civil servant and a stakeholder? Environmental safety.
Sure, sure. So the first two things that come to mind for me, especially if you're trying to provide safety for any environment, are understanding the cultural and language barriers that may hinder you from providing that level of safety or that level of advocacy.
Yeah.
Um, as mentioned before, I grew up in Flint, Michigan, predominantly Black community, but I recently moved to Chicago. Chicago is far different, far more diverse, and the demographics are far different. It could also be argued that Chicago is probably one of the most segregated cities in the United States as well. And so it's easy to go from one neighborhood and see one culture, and then you're in a completely different neighborhood. If you travel a few blocks, and you're in a completely different culture. So take a neighborhood like there's one in Chicago called Pilsen.
Mm-hmm.
Pilsen is a neighborhood that has beautiful people, beautiful culture, but it's also largely Hispanic.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to provide any level of environmental safety, any level of advocacy within Pilsen, you want to make sure that you have advocates that understand the cultural and language barriers associated with that particular community. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and when it comes to civil servants, you mentioned civil servants earlier. So let's take the first responders for example. The first responders are typically the police officers within that neighborhood. So if I believe that if you're looking to provide environmental safety for a neighborhood like Pilsen that's largely Hispanic, then you want to make sure that you're hiring for culture. If the
Mm.
motto is protect and serve, then you're
Yeah.
also protecting that culture and serving that culture. So you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're hiring not only for Spanish speaking individuals, but you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're hiring for people that understand and have a vested interest in that community's culture.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. That makes sense. So what it sounds like I hear you saying like hire for culture and not color, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're only talking about that to build in the interest of building trust between the
Yeah,
civil servants and those community stakeholders. That's the
yeah,
number one goal. If you're trying to provide any level of advocacy, you want to make sure that first you have that community's trust. And in
mm,
order to establish that trust, you have to have their best interest in mind by showing them, hey, I appreciate your culture, and I'm actually here to help preserve, your values at the end of the day. And that really just leads to a more healthy dialogue between the civil servants as well as the community stakeholders.
yeah. So when we start talking about civil servants, right, we find in some underrepresented communities, right, individuals who may not be from that particular demographic or even used to policing areas that are
Sure,
similar, right? So
sure.
it
Hmm.
seems like some of the easiest things that some of these departments do is hire someone because they simply have the credentials, right? They
I
hiring
passed the
someone
test. Absolutely. I passed the test, so hire me.
so hire me, right? So what it sounds like, based on what you just said, whoever is hired to police and or become civil servants within these municipalities, right? You're really hired to protect and preserve the cultural and social interests of that community. Right?
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely fair to say. That's beyond fair to say, actually.
So then I have another question then. So why are community stakeholders now saying, and ride with me on this one, right? Why are they now saying defund the police? Why
Oh,
is that
wow.
such a huge thing right now? We are hearing a lot of individuals say, hey, we need to
Yeah.
defund the police.
Right. I mean, and again, I referred to the police earlier as the first responder, right?
Yeah.
The first advocate that arrives on the scene in the event of an emergency.
Yeah.
So I feel like in terms of the community now saying, hey, defund the police, it's easy for you to get rid of what you don't find value in. If you don't find
Wow.
value in something, yeah. If you don't find value in it, then I really don't need you, and I'm probably going to say defund you. If the only reason a police officer shows up to my community is either to arrest, detain, or possibly shoot me, then I'm probably going to say, hey, defund the police, because the only reason they're showing up is to do, three negative things, and is actually serving to take away from the culture of my community rather than enhance it. So a police officer should always have the mindset of a healthy alternative, or I'm going to help de-escalate the situation once I arrive on the scene. And unfortunately, if the police department hasn't hired for culture, a lot of times you're going to get police officers to show up to your community that have no vested interest in your community. They don't know, what your culture is. They don't understand, what your language is. And so when you attempt to express something to them, sometimes it can be perceived as a threat.
Yeah, and it's lost in translation. No, there's one thing that, you said, hey, first responders are usually the first point of advocacy, right? They should be, but not just that, they also should be one of the most trustworthy points of advocacy, right? If you're coming into our community, right? And if that's not from the top down, right, that it really starts at, the police chief, the commissioner, captain, whoever, it starts from the top, right? And if you don't have that type of mindset at the top, it leads to toxic environments, right? And that leads to incidents, like the Sandra Bland, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and just recently, Jacob Blake. What are some of your thoughts on that, man?
Well, those are prime examples of toxic environments within the community. I truly believe that, you have one instance where the police officers or the civil servants are profiling the community, and then the community is profiling the police officers. And so just having that disconnection already created a toxic environment to begin with. So it hinders not only the advocate from providing advocacy, but it also prevents the community from receiving the level of advocacy that they're trying to provide.
Yeah, and I'm just a firm believer. Both of you and I from Flint, and we have some highly visible individuals that live within that community or the community is familiar with. And if we were hiring for culture as opposed to just for color, right? There would have been some form of familiarity, right? I do believe that if there's that police officer who shot Jacob Blake in the back didn't know him, he didn't know anyone who was related to Jacob Blake, anyone who was friends with Jacob Blake, right? So hey, I could shoot you 7 times in the back and not worry about it. Whereas in the city, if you want to have civil servants who mimic, right, the culture of the community, it would have never happened because, hey, I know you, or someone within the department knows you, someone within my family knows your family, right?
Sure. It's always a possibility that, unfortunate incidents like that could happen, but it's highly improbable. It probably wouldn't happen if I'm familiar with you. If I know you or I know your family, chances of me actually shooting you 7 times in the back probably wouldn't happen. It's highly improbable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of just, and we're talking about advocacy here. So, I mean, how do you become a better advocate for environmental safety as a civil servant as well as a community stakeholder? Because it's twofold. It's not just on the police department. I mean, what can you do as a community stakeholder as well to ensure environmental safety in your own communities?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to something you said earlier. I think it's changing the perspective, right? We have to change the perspectives because both sides are profiling each other, right? We have the civil servants, they have a mindset of the community. The community stakeholders have a mindset of the civil servants, right? So in order to break down those biases, we have to create healthy dialogue. So if we want to change or if we want our community to evolve, that means the way that we communicate must evolve.
I got you.
Most people don't understand how exactly you want to help them. Right? They don't know. So bridging the gap to help the community understand what it is that you do as a civil servant and to help you understand what the community needs from you. That's the type of dialogue that really needs to happen. So it means more than showing up for bad moments. You talked about it. If the only reason you're coming into my community is to detain, arrest, and or possibly shoot me, right? Then that's not really sending a clear message. I think that civil servants should show up for more than just the bad moments. And what I mean when I say that is, hey, they should be looking to hold more community events, right, around the city, and not just in any city, right, or just any community, in the neighborhoods where the department feels the most disconnected from. How can I have events, block parties, whatever it is, in the areas where I feel that we're most disconnected from? There could be several Q&A sessions where they're giving the community policy updates within the department or within the municipality, right? They may say, hey, we're on this event, and if we gave you a parking ticket last week, we're going to forgive that ticket. You come on down. We have, who could take care of that.
I would show up to that meeting. I would show up to that.
If they say, hey, we know you probably got a ticket for a suspended license, but hey, we want to work with you. We have someone down here who's willing to forgive that ticket. And, it is what it is. We'll help forgive that. And then I think another piece is sitting down with young people to get an understanding of their current views on police or civil service. How do you currently view us? Where did that come from? Right. And how do we change that narrative?
Right.
And lastly, I'll say community leaders and police officers and patrolling officers within a certain community should know each other. Right.
Okay.
They should know each other.
So you feel there's a disconnect between police officers and actual community leaders?
There's a huge disconnect between the community leaders and patrolling officers. And it's something as simple as them coming together. I don't care if it's, once a week, a month, and it's really to explain to each other the type of support that's really needed, right? Whether it be, like I said, for that week, that month, that quarter, etc. And the community needs to see its leaders and civil servants operating in one harmonious effort, right? If we are to experience real change and to change the narrative and bridging that divide, the community needs to see its leaders and its civil servants operating in one harmonious effort.
Right? I like it. So,
so that being said, I think we can move on to healthcare, right? So, and once again, I love definitions, right? I love defining things, and we're in the midst of COVID, the COVID pandemic. So when I look at healthcare, it's really the maintenance or improvement of health, whether it be proper diagnosis, treatment, or prevention of disease, illness, and injuries, and or other physical, mental impairments within the society. So from your perspective, kind of talk to me a little bit at how we should advocate for healthcare in the face of a coronavirus pandemic.
By first acknowledging some of the wars that this has started in terms of culture. Um, there's a lot of disconnect between leaders and the community. And so I
Hmm.
think that our healthcare leaders and our healthcare professionals should show more of a united front.
Yeah,
Unifying all of our, the key here is unity, just
yeah,
unifying all of our healthcare resources, and unifying all of the networks between the hospitals. So again, growing up in the city of Flint, I had the opportunity to witness, there being, four, maybe even five hospitals or clinics within 15 miles of each other.
yeah,
Um, and that's a prime opportunity for that particular county to get together with the directors of those hospitals possibly and say, hey, just the directors come together and share with the community, some of the challenges associated with COVID-19 today. And that united front could actually be an outward demonstration that, hey, we care about what's happening. And
yeah,
not only that, we want to know what questions you have for us as healthcare professionals and the directors of your healthcare facilities. We want to know what questions you may have. And it's putting the community in a place where they can ask the right questions to the right people.
wow,
So
yeah,
those panels again, when you're providing advocacy in any climate, the number one thing is trust. So you're going to establish trust, first of all, by going public. The second thing you want to do by providing a panel of your community leaders is provide that transparency.
yeah,
You're going to have transparent moments shared between the community and the community leaders, for healthcare and the advancement of healthcare, within that community. So
yeah,
they have a real opportunity to say to the public, "Hey, this isn't your problem. This is our problem."
yeah,
Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah. It's literally and figuratively taking the why right out of your right,
Oh,
right.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you
It's
take the
taking the why.
why off of, yeah, if you take the why off of your, it becomes our problem.
It's our problem. Yeah, no, absolutely. That totally makes sense.
So what should be the posture? So say we did adopt that mindset that, hey, we're going to bring our community professionals together. What should be the posture of a healthcare advocate during, the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah. So there's three things, right? I believe that the primary focus should be to provide consistent advocacy and resources that promote the highest standard of mental, physical, and emotional health. Right.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, it has to promote the highest standard in those three areas. I mean, turning every one of those obstacles into an opportunity to bridge the gap between the provider and the
Okay.
community. And I'll give you a
Okay.
prime example. So once again, going back to your analogy, bringing all of the hospital directors together to speak on the issues they're currently facing during this pandemic, literally can create the breeding ground for promoting empathetic environments.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
We're
Okay.
looking we're
Right, right.
looking to breed and promote empathetic environments. No, isn't it amazing, right? I always found it amazing that out of all the initiatives that we see in different cities and surrounding areas, that there isn't one unified approach that embraces the way that we give and receive advocacy. Not one unified approach, right?
Hmm.
That embraces the way that we give and receive advocacy, or
Wow.
a
Wow. Yeah.
comprehensive and inclusive model that unifies and redefines public support in our communities.
Okay. Okay.
I haven't
So
seen
the
one. Yeah.
so the basis for that would be just unity in and of itself.
Absolutely. So that being said, so hospital directors showing a strong front to your point by collaborating and sharing resources to support these hard to reach areas are critical, right? So if
Sure.
you
Yeah.
have nurses and or physicians who are available to go physically into these hard to reach areas, right? And when I say hard to reach, I mean those communities that are facing different types of divides, whether that be a
Okay.
digital divide, whether that be a transportation divide, meaning that the nearest bus stop is 4 or 5 blocks away, right? Or whether that be emotional support, right? You may not have anyone in your household, right? Or you may have many people in your household and you just don't know what symptoms to look for. So having nurses and physicians actually coming into those communities, right, and offering that level of support, right, it's just a breeding ground for empathetic environments, right? And being able to show a semblance of responsibility, accountability, empowerment, right? Empowering the community. It inspires the community. They know exactly what they can and should be doing. And then it also breeds a sense of urgency, man. That's just Jay Brown's view on that, right?
Yeah. I
So
like it.
no, so going back to that emotional support piece, right? Talking about, hey, because now that's more of an individual thing, right? If there's someone in my household, what symptoms and signs should I be looking for, and how can I support my loved one before a first responder show up? So taking it to a personal perspective, from your view, Torrey, what would be, what is my personal responsibility to the community during the pandemic? Right, Jay Brown, if it's just me, what would you say my personal responsibility to the community during this pandemic? What would that be?
First and foremost, I think is just following the rules. If the CDC has issued certain rules, and they say, hey, this is in the best interest of the community, then it's probably in the best interest from a personal level for you to follow those rules as well. So to keep it as simple as possible, understanding that there are frustrations associated with the pandemic. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's a lot of frustrated people in the world today, and they're saying, hey, I'm over it. I'm over the whole thing. I'm over this pandemic. I'm over being isolated. I'm over being stuck in the house with my family. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Just because you're over it doesn't mean the pandemic is over. Okay.
Right.
Right. Like, no, we understand that you may be over it, but it's still your personal responsibility to understand that the pandemic isn't over. And now more than ever, we need to remain consistent in the guidelines that have been, given to us to help us survive the pandemic long term. So things like, if you have a reusable mask, wash your reusable mask. Don't just keep it in your car because you have to go to the grocery store, or keep it in that little cup compartment. Make sure that, hey, you're washing that mask every 3 to 5 days. More importantly, wear the mask. You see a lot of people, they keep it in their back pockets. They're wearing halfway off their faces. They're putting it on their wrist. Wear the mask, because that's a public demonstration that you actually believe that you're protecting yourself as well as protecting the community around you. And speaking of the community around you, just try your best to avoid large gatherings. It can be, especially with the weather being pleasant, it can be really tempting to, throw parties or attend a party, or, go different places, or, take your family to the movies or anything like that. But we want to make sure, as an investment in your health, you're doing everything that you can with all that you have, from the place that you are and the information that you have, to ensure the safety of not only your community, but yourself as an individual. So in terms of, and I guess, the education of it all, you get what I'm saying? Like the whole process of just learning what it means to be more beneficial or being a better advocate takes proper education, effective education, efficient education. What does that mean in terms of advocacy? What does education actually mean in our community today?
So, and I was hoping that you could kind of expound on that one, right?
Okay.
Because you've had some experience, in that space. So I'm actually going to defer to you on this one. So here's what I think about, just education overall, right? And especially doing it, because it's heartening to see the pictures of kindergarten classrooms with the plexiglass right up. Seeing teachers, educators with the plexiglass at their desk with the face mask and those 5-year-olds only know how to be 5-year-olds, right? That's it. They don't know,
Right.
hey, I can't touch my friend, or hey, they don't know that, hey, we can't share toys. But as
Right.
long as we're doing everything that we can that we're making sure that we're creating and maintaining a safe haven for our students to imagine the unimaginable, to think the unthinkable, and to dream without fear of ridicule or reproach, right? I feel that, if using that model, education can be saved, right? But so I'm gonna refer the question that you posed to me back to you. What from your point, what are the proper advocacy for education in our community?
Oh, wow. I would have to say it's two parts. It's the education that our children are receiving today has to be both informational as well as inspirational. You
Mm-hmm.
have to, in addition to informing the kids about the virus as a whole and what it means for the community, you also have to inspire them to stand up for the community as well, in terms
Yeah.
of having better hygiene, inspiring healthy social distancing, right? It's
Yep.
inspiring better connections amongst our children. So it can't be just largely informational, where you're just dumping a bunch of the information onto our children and saying, this is the information and these are the rules that we have to follow. You also have to follow that up with inspiration that helps children support those guidelines that you put in place, or the curriculum that you put in place. And I think that in addition to all of that, adaptability is probably going to be key. Some of the biggest, most successful corporations in the world, they survive because they learn to adapt. And so teaching our children the beauty of being able to adapt very early, and helping them walk through that both intellectually and emotionally, will probably be the best way to go about, educating our children in terms of creating learning environments that they can thrive in. In terms of that, I know that you have a daughter yourself, right? What is she like? She's like six now,
She's
or something like
six.
that.
No, don't make sure you put the half in there, right? So she needs that half. Yeah, she needs that half.
6.5. So in the interest of actually helping a student like your daughter, right? Properly adjust to new learning environments, right? She's learning everything from home now. What has been like your personal experience with your own daughter at home?
Well, let's just say this. So I've been with my daughter. I've been at home with my daughter since March 16th, right? So I was the educator for the remainder of the last school year. So this year, I put in a transfer slip to get her out of my class, so she'd be in my wife's class. I put in that transfer slip. We had to come together. But it's been once again a journey, because once again she's 6.5. All she knows how to do is be 6.5. Right? She doesn't understand, hey, I have to sit down in front of this Chromebook and listen to my teacher speak. I'm used to moving around. Or, hey, I'm not used to seeing my dad or my mom, in this learning environment. So is it okay if I still talk to mom and dad while I'm also looking at this, right? So we also had to become creative in how we create home activities, because listen, Chuck E. Cheese is closed, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. And at one point the parks were closed. A lot of the things that we were doing, during family time and getting out and having fun, seeing family members, a lot of that went away. So we had to get really creative in how we were creating new environments. And then once again, checking in like on her emotional capacity, right? Checking in, seeing how she feels, right? How does she feel not being able to be in school? How does she feel not being able to, be with her friends? Not just that, an emotional check-in, even with myself and my wife. How are we feeling, right? Because for the first time, ever, right? This has probably been the most time that parents have spent with their kids ever, right? Listen, parents are usually away at work, or their kids are usually at school. Like, no, this is the first time we've all been in the same house all day long. So, and with that comes levels of frustration, right? And we have a tendency to project those frustration on our kids, right? It's not the fact
Yes.
that they spilled the milk, but we yell at them. Listen, the milk is an antecedent to the real issue, right? The real issue is that we're used to being out, we're used to communicating with others, and that has been taken away from us. So from this whole learning, adjusting and creating a new learning experience, we've learned to just lean on the professionals, right? So let's talk to the teacher who had my daughter in her class last year to see, hey, how can we organize our house, or how can we organize a space within our home that mirrors or that's familiar with what our daughter has been used to, right? So
That's
now more
smart.
than
That's
ever,
really smart.
yes, now more than ever, we have to learn how to lean on our professionals who do this, right? And how can we begin to adjust?
Absolutely.
So, and you touched on this a little, because there's also another piece. There's the school board piece, and you touched on it briefly with the inspiration and information piece, right? But there, what do you believe? What does advocacy look like from a school board perspective?
Oh, wow. I would have to say it definitely starts with the curriculum first.
Mm,
Curriculum and showing the ability to adapt within your curriculum is going to be paramount to your success. It's going to make
yeah,
it's going to, because you're going to have the opportunity. And again, I know we're looking at these things like they're obstacles, but your curriculum has to turn those obstacles into opportunities to educate our children further on the whole of the virus, the whole of the pandemic, their social responsibility associated with that. And the curriculum has to include not only the coronavirus piece, but I think that it also has to include early information and inspiration for DEI, for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Growing up, and I didn't hear much about diversity, equity, and inclusion in elementary. I didn't hear a lot about it in middle school. I didn't even hear a lot about it in high school.
Yeah.
The first time I heard anything close to it in terms of like social activism or anything like that was when I got to college. I
Wow.
didn't start hearing the terms together, the diversity, equity, and inclusion terms together until I got to corporate America. And that's a
Mm,
problem.
yeah.
That's a problem. So I think that our school boards have a really great opportunity to introduce, DEI earlier within the curriculum, so that it's not such a huge adjustment for corporate America in the future, or for us to provide advocacy on any level
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. And I think that's the most human thing that we can do, right?
Absolutely,
A
absolutely.
lot of
Yeah,
a lot
definitely
of
most
problems,
human.
a lot of problems that we face can be solved by just simply being human, and we talk about that a lot, you and I, believing ourselves to be, humanitarians. So,
Okay.
so transitioning to the philanthropic community piece, right? Understanding, that means for us is the love of humanity in the sense of caring, nourishing, developing, and enhancing, what it means to be human, right?
Wow.
Just
Yes.
like
Yes.
the love for humanity in the sense of caring, nourishing,
Wow.
developing, enhancing what it means to be human,
My
right?
goodness. That's a
Yeah.
that's a tough definition. Where are you getting these definitions from, man? That's a tough definition, man. I like it. I like it.
Hey, hey, man, listen,
Yeah.
man, when you surround yourself with great people, man, and true humanitarians,
Yeah. Yeah.
it seeps out of you. We've been talking about this for a long time, for the past, man. We've been friends for 19 years, right? And this has been the conversation over the past 19 years. And one of the
Sure.
things
Sure.
that you harp on and you're really big on is, if you're doing anything, right, we have to make sure that it's meaningful, measurable, and sustainable, right? MMS,
Absolutely.
meaningful,
Absolutely.
measurable,
MMS.
and yeah, MMS. So, what does that look like from an advocacy within the philanthropic community?
Got you. Got you. So if you consider yourself any type of professional philanthropic organization, I think that first of all, your mission and your vision statements should be turned all the way up in your community during this time, during this climate. Like, people should be able to hear. It should be amplified. People should be able to hear, feel, see, and truly experience your mission and vision consistently demonstrated throughout the community on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, because they need to understand that they're a real part of your advocacy as well. That it's not just, you and your building inside your four walls coming up with these ideas. They need to understand that they themselves as a community are a very real and intricate part of helping you operationalize your mission statement and helping you operationalize your vision statement. So I think that during this time, if you're a philanthropic organization, your mission and vision should be amplified. It should be turned all the way up in your communities, for sure.
No, we talk about it all the time. Advocacy not being a spectator sport, right? You can't sit on the sideline and be an advocate. It's really full contact, right? Nothing trumps ambition, and you say this a lot. Nothing trumps ambition. Or no, how do you say? You say, do you know? There it is. Do you know what trumps ambition? And that's action. Action will always trump ambition. Now I hear, you hang around old people long enough, you hear cool things. They talk about good intentions. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it doesn't matter how well intentioned you are, you have to act, right?
Absolutely.
And and you talk about these things. Philanthropy, isn't just donating your money. So when you say that, what are you really meaning?
Again, it's really not just donating your money. A lot of times is donating your time, your energy, and your effort. That's what's most important. People seeing a consistent demonstration of you redepositing your time, energy, and effort back into their communities. You're redepositing that effort and energy back into humanity, if you will. And that's what's most important when it comes to having or changing your viewpoint about philanthropy altogether, is that it's not just about money. The money is great and it helps us act, but at the same time, we also need people to donate of their time, their ideas, their energy, and their effort. And there needs to be diversity, equity, and inclusion in those areas as well. Like, we need diverse time. We need diverse moments of time. We need equitable talent and an equitable dispersion of talent, and distribution of talent. And we also need those opportunities where the community feels included in your mission and your vision by helping you operationalize it on a daily basis.
So you said something. You said, hey, making sure that you redeposit resources back in it. So that sounds like a personal thing. So if I'm a member in the community, and in this climate, how would you suggest that how can I truly reach my true philanthropic potential? Let me ask it that way. If it's me, how can I truly reach my philanthropic potential in this climate?
Got you. First recognize that it's a very personal question. It's a very personal question. When you're trying to maximize or magnify your philanthropic potential, you have to dig deep and try to figure out what bothers you the most. What do you hate seeing the most in your community? What do you hate seeing the most? Is it the trash in the community? Is it homelessness? Is it people without proper clothing or food? Is it, pregnant women not being able to get the resources they need? Is it domestic violence? What bothers you the most in your community? That's the first thing you need to identify and really come to terms with, because sometimes you can get off on tangents. But what's most important is that you say, hey, this is what really bothers me. This is what's really important to me. And then take that energy and align it with professionals in the community that are already champions for the things that you hate the most in your community. If they're the champion of domestic violence, then you should align yourself with the resources and the professionals they have in place and share your ideas. Share your ideas. Leaders are always willing to hear great ideas.
Absolutely.
So it's important. So it's important that once you identify what you really care about, what you're really passionate about, that you align that passion with professionals that are already champions of the things that you believe need to be taken care of in your community.
That's great. That's great. I love it. I love it. And then there's something that you always say as well. And you may have to say it for me. You say something about building bridges means first something.
Oh yeah. So if you're trying to build bridges as an advocate, building bridges first means understanding the gaps. You got to understand the gaps. Like, you can't just go around building bridges, right? Like you don't. Civil engineers don't just build bridges anywhere. Civil engineers, they understand that, hey, if we're going to build a bridge, what's the distance? What gaps are we closing? And who's going to travel over this bridge, right? Who's going to use this bridge the most? And then also, what 2 points or multiple points are we connecting with this bridge?
Wow.
That has to be considered. Like, before going out and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is the advocate, and this is the bridge, this is a form of advocacy I'm going to provide, and this is a bridge I'm going to build. First, understand the gaps. Be in tune with your community. Understand what's missing so that you can effectively build bridges.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. So in terms of building bridges, like, you have quite the resume in corporate America in terms of DEI and being able to successfully help people with their CSR strategies. Like, for large organizations, right? And we're talking about like huge cloud companies, people who have large employee bases. Like, what's the correct CSR strategy for large organizations in the communities in which they serve?
No, definitely. And I'll try to be brief with this one, in the interest of time. I know we only have a little bit of time left. What I love to tell, highly visible officials within their corporation, whether they be the CEO or, CSO, whoever, always say, if your approach isn't one that inspires the unifying of people for a cause that's greater than yourself, you should reconsider your mission. You really should consider. You really should reconsider your mission. Because it's all about unity, and it has to be for a cause that's greater than yourself. There's so many different nonprofits, organizations out here that are doing phenomenal things, and corporations have core strategies and things that they put on their in their office and all these different things. And it's so easy to identify companies who have consistently demonstrated public support in whatever area you're looking for, and has shown themselves to be a strong leadership presence in the community. Right? They're easy to identify if you look. You have to look. You have to want to find these organizations, right? Whether they be highly visible institutions or institutions that just need a little extra push. That's where I really thrive. In my role as director of corporate social responsibility, was really trying to identify some of them, some of the nonprofits that needed a little bit of an extra push from corporate America, right? And say, hey, here I am. I'm doing phenomenal things. I just need someone to see me. Like, so I always say, I don't want to be seen giving, right? I'm not giving to be seen, but I definitely want to be seen giving, right?
There we go.
Right.
There we go.
I'm not giving to be.
So you're saying corporations should take on that same mindset?
Absolutely. No, you're not giving to be seen, but you definitely want to be seen giving. You definitely want to be seen mobilizing your workforce, right? For a cause that's greater than yourself. So with that being said, man, do you have any parting words or anything? Because I would definitely want to leave time if anyone has any questions for us. We definitely want to leave some space. Any parting words, man?
None that I can think of. I think just being able to talk to my friend about things that are really important to the community has really just lifted me and inspired me today. So even in that, just sharing a conversation about the things that really matter in your community could do wonders for enhancing advocacy and nourishing the humanity within your own community.
No, definitely. Globally. So you got a book that you're writing?
Right?
You care to share anything about about your book? What's the book about? What can we expect?
Yeah, so primarily I'll be covering 4 different things in my book. I'll be talking about self-love, the love of others, beauty, and changing the perspective of beauty and what it should be and what we should be focused on. And then freedom of self and freedom of expression. And the realization of all 4 of those things at once, I think serves to improve all of humanity. So I'm working out several titles right now for the book in and of itself, and working out, how it's going to be distributed and all of those things. But that's what I care about the most. And I think that's what we need to focus on in order to get back to what really matters in our community. Love of self, love of others, beauty, and appreciating beauty in all forms, and freedom of expression. So yeah, man.
No, I love it, man. I love it. And you approached me a little while ago, man. So if people want to sort of hear more of this conversation that we're having right now, man, where might they be able to tune in to kind of hear more of this content?
Oh man, so you can catch us on all social media platforms. Most importantly, we're actually getting ready to start a podcast. So if you like this content, you like what we're talking about, we have a podcast. The name of the podcast is called Go Love Your Own. And when we say go love your own, we're saying love your own community in the most philanthropic, educationally sound, health-centric, and environmentally sound way that you can think of. Go love your own. And it's going to be dynamic, topics, dynamic guests. And we're looking to just push the cause in all 4 of these areas of advocacy on that channel. So be on the lookout for that particular podcast on all streaming platforms. And then, touch base with us on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn just by typing in, my first and last name there. And then you can find me on social media at King, King _HEN. So that's King, HEN, King _hen. So I'm there. Yep.
Perfect, man. Now, listen, I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion, man. Like I said, man, we've been friends for over 19 years, man, and we got some skin.
It's always a pleasure.
We got some skin in the game, and one thing that we've always said, is that our success depends on maintaining the trust of our members, partners, sponsors, investors, and other key stakeholders. Sustaining that trust means living up to the highest standard of integrity in everything that we do, right? Our collective action makes us who we are, right?
Yeah,
our collective action, So that being said, we appreciate everyone who tuned in. We appreciate all of your support. We appreciate, AJ. We appreciate just for giving us this opportunity to talk with all of you. So I don't know if there's, I believe someone was coming in to kind of see it. There it is. There's Ruthie.
Hold on. So we have a chat.
Sorry, this camera was a little too close for 3 people. It worked for 2, but not for 3.
Yeah.
Jay, there we go. Jay, Torrey, thank you so much. I have to tell you, my husband and I, we've decided that in the case of quarantine, we actually have too many children. We have 4, and it's too many. I have a kindergartner about to start, and then one's in 3rd grade, and then the other 2 aren't even old enough. And I'm like, that's the new test. How do you know how many kids you want to have? How many do you think you can handle stuck in the house for 6 months?
Well, how many can you homeschool at once?
Right. Yeah. Like we were outnumbered anyway, and now it's just like too much. But I will certainly. I wrote down a couple of the things that you said here. You guys are great for sound bites, so I will be tagging you. I will be tagging you on LinkedIn. But I really loved what you said about you don't. What was it? It's let's see. You shouldn't give to be seen, but you want to be seen giving. Yes. And that is such a struggle sometimes with some of my own clients as a marketing consultant, because I have some and I'm like, you guys do such great stuff. We should make sure people know about it. And they're like, well, we don't do it for that. So they just don't talk about it.
Yeah. No, listen, I learned in an early age, growing up in church, hey, we're not just doing it just to be seen. It's for people to say, hey, you're this glory or whoever, but you definitely want to be seen supporting. It's one of the things that, Torrey and I talk about all the time. If you want people to support those things that you do, those things that you have in mind, you first have to be partaker, right? You have to show that, hey, I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to invest, right? So that's really what it is for me. It's really showing and demonstrating, that support for the community. I want to be seen. I definitely want to be seen giving and doing my part to help the ecosystem at large.
Well, and it also helps consumers make better decisions. And I'm sure you can appreciate this since you're in CSR industry. But if I, make it a point to support organizations that support my community, and I don't know that you as an organization do support my community, then you're not helping me make the most informed choice that I could make as a customer or as a client. So that's, I think, the other side to it. If all things are equal and I know that company A supports my community and company B just kind of sits there, I'm picking company A.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, like I said, even from mobilizing your constituents, I like to call, instead of employees, I like to call them constituents, right? So, and even in helping to mobilize your constituents is really making sure that you're demonstrating, hey, that I care about the communities where you both live and work, right?
Yes.
Because when I ask you to come to the office and put in time, I'm not just asking you for your physical time. I'm also asking for your mental and emotional time as well. Right. That's what I'm asking for. And you're trusting me with that. So I always treated our constituents as if they were volunteers, because that's essentially what they are. They make a decision every single day to wake up, to come to the office, and to accept our money. Right.
That's right.
They're working for it, but it's their choice, because at any given moment, they could leave and go work for someone else. So in what way are we demonstrating that we're invested in taking care of all three phases, that physical, emotional, and mental investment that they're putting back into our company?
Absolutely. But again, thank you both, Jay, Torrey, for being here and for sharing this with us. I'm really excited to check out your book when it comes out. So I'll certainly be connecting with you, Torrey. And I'm also excited about your podcast. As a fellow podcaster, I wish you both the very best of luck on that endeavor. But what you have to say is just incredibly valuable. So I think that you're going to find that you have a very eager audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to take this time as well to thank all of our sponsors. And please, if you still have some time, everybody who is watching now, be sure to catch our closing comments with our creator, Dr. AJ, and any of the remaining sessions. Share, like, review, rate, and that will help us put on additional summits as these conversations become more and more widespread. But again, thank you so much to the both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. You have a great one. Thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Take care.